Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whoever you are and wherever you are. Yeah, I did say in the last video that I would be doing this video a few hours later, but something came up yesterday. I wasn't feeling so well. I just went and knocked out to bed. So I'm doing this in the early morning in Malaysia time, and yeah, basically one of my last. Well, I just calculated and rechecked everything. This would be my last album of archives, I would say, to be recorded as a whole. And probably I'll be doing another clip is revisiting my other uh, archives I have in my book. Probably after when I have overhauled and readjust my collections by inserting new ones, those that I have uncatalogued will be cataloged into the book, and some most probably I will be deciding to put it in the safe deposit box. I would say in a safe under the bank's vault, so to speak, to make sure that it's kept safe. Uh, you don't want to carry some of those precious notes, high value ones, in case there is fire or in case there is a natural disaster or man-made disasters like arson or robbery. So yeah, so I'm going to go through my very last one. This one probably for some people is quite a boring last archive, I would say, because most of this contain is local. Southeast Asia side and Malaysia. So those are my. This is my very first book that I archived back in 2003. You hear that correctly. 2003, 2002, this is the year that I started and decided to start collecting banknotes to embrace numismatic as a whole. And then when I go to uni, I just stopped collecting and focused on my studies because going overseas study, most of the money is very tight, so I don't really spend on buying banknotes because anyway, it's not my money, it's my parents' money. So spending responsibly is a top priority for myself as a discipline. Now I have work, I earn my own money, I earn my own keeps. So that is where I currently now spending on most of it, and I'm quite very conscious on spending things. I don't like to spend things that it can degrade. I spend on things, a lot of it in huge money, in huge sum, on things that it can appreciate. It grows, like conventional people say buy gold. Well, gold sometimes depreciate if the economy is good. So most of the time I approach is like buying properties, and other than property is limited edition products that long period of time it will grow. Is banknotes, artworks, things that could appreciate over time of its term, like interest. So this is where I approach my conscious on spending. So a lot of people think I spend on my hobby too much until your bank account is literally running low. It's for me it's just converting my money to something else so it can grow and also feed my pleasure as a hobbyist, as a numismatic hobbyist. So yeah, let's get to it. It's quite most of it is Southeast Asia collection and Malaysia, my very first book. And of course, looking at my very first book, sometimes and look at it, it's quite boring. But anyway, it is what it is. Still a collection. So here we go. First three notes. At that time I didn't know the 5 cent. I just slotted in the 5 cent, but actually now I kind of realize it years back after my 2003 2004 fiasco period of my high school. I realized this is a B. So this is actually not 5 cent Malaya. It is a 5 cent Burma or Myanmar today. B stands for Burma. So and it's red in color. So it's quite distinctively coded under the Japanese government or the Empire of Japan. The colony for Myanmar or Burma is red in and is B. This is for Malaya, 1 cent. This is a Malaya. Now there are two types. Now in the pig number they only have one type of it, but there are two variations. If you go in detail in Malaya's or Malaysia's catalog book itself, the local one, there are two. One is solid alphabet and one is fractional. This is the fractional one, which is the most common. The one with the solid, with a number on, with the alphabet, a single alphabet. Now that is the rare one. That is the rare one. But anyway, till today, nobody has ever possessed a solid one. But there are rumors going around that is a possibility a solid one. But at the moment, as far as I can see, it's fractional. And I'm missing the 5 cent one, which no biggie because this 5 cent Malaya one is gonna cost about probably less than 10 ringgit. It's just a small fraction of things I buy. It's almost a cup of coffee just to buy this note. No biggie for me. It's easy and accessible and is widely available. Then we have the common one, $1. Now they didn't use £1 because at that time they correlate this with what the people has been using at that time, and even at that time Malaya and Singapore, they were using dollars rather than pound. So when the Japanese took over, well, it's in dollars. Although we are the British, but we are not so-called fancy on pound sterling. We use dollars. Now, this is the one interesting that I want to show differences, if I may. There are two types of variations of this note of $1. This one and this one. Can you see the difference? Of course, the difference is the alphabet. This is the alphabet and the alphabet. On this one, if you can see closely, this is an alphabet with serial numbers. Alphabet with serial number, and it only exists in MA and MB, the very first issue by the Japanese government at that time, and subsequently MC and until MO, as you can see here. They didn't print with the numbers, they overprinted as it is. Reason is they need to quickly print it, and hyperinflation was hitting hard during the late war efforts. So the control of the value of the currency become diminished. The value of it become diminished, and a lot of it, we call this a banana money, which later you'll see why later on. But yeah, this became value almost similar to use as a toilet paper. Eventually, after the Second World War was near to the end, now technically in Europe, Second World War ended in 1945. In the Pacific theater side is a year ahead, is in 1 year time, which is 1946 when the atomic bomb dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Then Japan eventually capitulate and declare surrender, unconditional surrender. Now, even between that 1 year period, 1945 to 1946, hyperinflation looms largely, much more largely, and the money became toilet paper at that period. So yeah, now the value of the money, the note, or this money, I would say, This one, of course, is in a better condition, and this is in hard condition. Look at that. It's split in the middle. The corners are all round. The missing pieces, like here in my thumbs. Missing piece right here. They are if you ask me, it's a very horrendous condition. But this one has more value than this one. Yes, right. This one probably is around 100 or to 200 ringgit, whereas this one is just mere 16 ringgit. Now the reason why, the condition is better than this, why this is well, but it's the serial number. The serial number's quantity is much lesser than this one. This one we don't have serial number. We don't know how much this has been printed out. From MC to MO, we don't know the total quantity. Else on this one with the serial number, we know there is a control number. We know the quantity is being printed out, and this is one of those earlier days when the Japanese conquered Malaya. So being the first, being the earliest and the smallest quantity brings the price up, because the volume of it is very high. And of course, $1 is the lowest denomination, so the frequency of being used is much greater and higher at that period of time compared to the other larger denomination. Well, so since that is the case, in a way we say that if you want an uncirculated condition with the serial number, those cost more than thousands of ringgit. Guarantee more than thousands of ringgit, at least 1,500, I would say, at a borderline about uncirculated condition, because of its quantity of that kind of condition is extremely rare compared to those like the red ones that you just saw. Those are much more common, so the price range is around 150 to 200 ringgit. So and compared to other denomination, the $1 one is the higher value than the others, because of the rarity of the note being in that state of condition. It may have large quantity, but the large quantity is already used and worn or teared or burnt, so the condition is not uncirculated. The uncirculated condition is much more greatly little, much more significantly small volume exists. So that's why it fetches very higher value than compared to the $5 and the $10. So yeah, so this one with the common one with those number, you can get it for good pristine condition at about 20 ringgit. This price, it was very long ago. It was 2 years back. It was 16. Probably today, a better condition, a pristine condition, still probably would be selling around 30 or 40 ringgit. Depends on the hype. And there was a period where people are selling this last year. There was a hype for it, for uncirculated conditions, and a lot of people, they would actually buy it in stacks, like the original stacks bought by the manufacturer of the printing and the Japanese government, and never opened, never used. And that's the reason why the quantity is so much for uncirculated condition. They are vastly cheap. Another one, this one. Now I bought this one in a good condition. Now this is quite poor, but yet it's an MO. Now the difference is this set is actually very sentimental to me. This is given to me by my grandparents who lived during the Japanese occupation, and being a Chinese by blood, by race, under a Japanese rule, is a very difficult and hard life. No doubt about that. It is a very difficult and hard life. So a lot of it are quite bad condition, I would say. They're quite bad condition. I have one there here, another one that is the $1 with here MA with a proper with serial number. This is I got it from my grandparents, so they actually got a good one. a better condition, but I kept it for sentimental. It's not gonna be go anywhere liquidated or what. Sentimental to me, including this $5 is sentimental to me. This is basically the $1 with just the alphabet. This is the $1 with the serial number. This is the $5 with just a block number. Yeah, this is very sentimental to me. My grandparents survived the war as a civilian, and yeah, kept this. At that time, they actually had a choice to burn it because Japanese has ended its rule in Malaya at that time in 1946. A lot of people just throw it out, burn it, and so forth. It became toilet paper. It has no value. But they kept some of them as a reminder, and before they pass off, I would say, pass on in a proper way, they give it to me because they know that I collect banknotes, so they felt that it's a right thing in a good hands, in my my good hands, to keep these notes. And anyway, you see the $5 one with the cheap one basically, and this is the serial number. So this one's another expensive one with serial number on it. Yep. And then brighter color. Actually, my grandparents kept this one much better than condition than the other ones. So yeah, quite lucky, I would say. But the color, it looks like it is deteriorated. It was pink. The color is more lighter, pale, so to speak. And then they have the $10. Now this is the one that is the most popular note across the Malaya. Some of the denomination of the others that are used, but they are not widely used as hyperinflation hits during the later years of the Japanese rule. These denominations became very, very annoying and obsolete because you can't buy things with just a single or two piece or three piece of this paper money to buy a good. And most of it has jumped prices, so when they jump prices, this became the new norm of paying for transaction, $10, because a lot of the goods are probably in $100, $200 for a bread and so forth. At that time, I don't know, I didn't study about that, but this became the common use compared to the 5, the 5 and the 1, and including the early one that you see, the first one in cents. They no longer exist to be used in the late war timeline. Sorry. So they printed more of this. So they have MP again, MA, MB. The earlier ones, they are serial numbers. Now, when I say about this has become very popular, that is where we get the word for Malaysia's banana money. See the banana here? You see some coconuts here? The highlight is because of the banana. They call this banana money. Even in those days, even during the 40s, the mid 30s, during the Japanese rule, they still call this banana money. They don't call it Japanese money, they call it banana money. And it's literally the older generations, their mind will kick in, they know you are referring to this. So it's not just I nickname them, say banana money. It's literally those days, the generation who lived during the Japanese rule, they call it banana money, and that's where we get the name for it, banana money. When you tell them about banana money, it will trigger them about this one very easily. And then you have this one. Now but I had the serial number, but I didn't put it in here in the album. I kept it in the safe because it's in a better condition, the one with the serial number. So I kept that one. Now that one is, I've bought it rather than my grandparents kept it. So that one I actually bought it in from some dealer when I was very, very young in 2004 or 2005. I bought very, very old days, and it cost me not so much expensive. It got me about probably less than 100 ringgit, but in a very good condition actually. Now the only one that I'm missing in a variation for the $10 or banana money is the one that is a war effort counterfeit by the Allied forces. We call it the SOE $10. Now the SOE $10, the most significantly to indicate is that there is a boat here. I'm sorry you can't see, it's too far away, but there is a boat here, like a steamboat having a smokestack, having smoke coming out. In the SOE, the counterfeit one, they don't have smoke, and that's how you indicate that note is made from the Allied counterfeiters or it is from the Japanese printers. The objective at that time to print lots of these counterfeits is to collapse the financial system of the Japanese economy, especially in the colony side. To destabilize economy rather than a military attack, they also do economic damages so that the country would collapse much quicker. And crippling the economy is a big key role in winning the war effort at that time. And the Germans tried to do that by printing a very highly sophisticated banknotes of the British banknotes. You see that there is a counterfeit, like a white paper kind of thing, or is simplistic. Yeah, those are some of them are counterfeits for the Germans' war effort to cripple the British economy. So in the Second World War, they started to do this not just through military but through economic warfare by making their currency weak. And of course, this is one having this kind of situation. This is one of the reasons why America learned from those issues in other countries fought in the Second World War. They actually created such notes such as these. These notes indicate overprint Hawaii, including the back. You can see that. This note is designed to alleviate or preventing banknotes being printed counterfeit or being used by the enemies, mainly used by the enemies, to cripple the economy of the country or the enemies. So, Japanese enemy is the United States of America after the Pearl Harbor incident. So, the United States have to create subtype of banknotes of the region to alleviate any problem, or it's a contingency basically. It's still valued as a dollar to a dollar of the United States in mainland. But if the Japanese conquered Hawaii, all these banknotes becomes worthless, zero, and it will not cripple the Americans' economy system, which is a very strategic, I would say, to prevent the collapse of the Americans' economy. So the Japanese, on the other hand, didn't learn that lesson. It was a bit more, Japanese were more arrogant at that time, I would say, more so they cannot think of anything other than honorable war, and eventually their attitude, their way of thinking of the warfare effort make them lost the war. If they have thought a bit more like Americans, probably they would be winning or having stalemate with the United States. But of course, after the axis of power of Italy and Germany collapsed and surrendered, Japan was the only country left to fight against the entire world. They have no friends. It's all on themselves. Eventually, it's a losing war effort, to be honest. So anyway, this one is another large denomination, the $100. Now this one's supposed to be the rarer types. Now they have few variations of these notes. I have the common one is actually slant M. We call it slant. But I have is the straight one, which is the rarer type. The common one is actually the slant. When I say slant, the M on the end side, you see the M like this, is actually straight on the left side and the right side of the character. The slant, it will be like this. The M would look like this rather than like this. So I had the one with the straight one. This is a much more rarer type, and the note printing is watermark paper. It's much more darker, more purplish than the normal common print, which is not woven paper. That means they have downgraded the paper's value. They downgraded it to a cheaper one, and the print is much more brownish color rather than purplish. I kept this one, although the condition wise is horrible. It's already split in the middle. It actually divorced. Actually, the note is already divorced. Basically, this note is collector's value, worthless. But since it's from my grandparents, giving it to me in this condition, is sentimental value to me. You know, having your parents, grandparents went through the war, so I kept this one. Although there's no value in investment or so forth, it's worthless. To be honest, it's still worth about less than 1 ringgit, I would say, or no money even. But it's sentimental value to me. Although I will give them credit, it is one of those rare type of notes, which is there's a smear ink of the print, which is one of the common errors in for this note, and is a darker material ink printed interwoven. They use woven paper, sorry. So that means there's watermark on the paper. So the condition of this note is rare. Is much more higher in value. Of course, even higher in value, they print this a lot. I can get a new one like this for less than 200 or 300 ringgit. Piece of cake, right? But to me, this one will always be sentimental value to me. So I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just going to keep it for myself. This note. So yeah. And of course, at the back, the print is one piece of color with the man with two water buffaloes. We call it Kerbau in Malay language, Kerbau, or including Indonesian language we call it Kerbau. But I think in English we call it the water buffaloes. So it's pretty very localized banknote. So that's all I have for the Japanese side, the Himalaya collection I have. Other than those uncatalogued that I bought a new one for that, which is not slotted in here. So yeah, moving on is Malaysia. This is after the war. As you can see, different signatures, different governors, different imprint. And now those days we use dollar sign. We converted the dollar into Malay language is ringgit. So it's 1 ringgit means $1. So this is how we kind of indicate ringgit is directly translate is dollar actually. So at that time when we got independent, most of it in Malay language, so they put it 1 ringgit, but the symbol is still used the dollar sign. Before that they don't have it, they just put the watermark 10 here as a security feature. They had a smaller $1 at the corner end here. Then when they evolved the note, they removed the dollar here and put it here, one big chunk right here, and remain the smaller one here. So those days, the early days of Malaysia is that they use dollar sign. If you look at the notes today, the newer one, they no longer use this dollar sign. They have changed the dollar sign to RM, Malaysia Ringgit. So you see most of the denomination when you see in Malaysia is RM, $1, 1 ringgit, RM2, RM10. The RM stands for Ringgit Malaysia. That's how it looks like in the back. I have a better condition ones right here. All this actually I didn't buy. I want to reiterate that majority of it is passed down from my grandparents, and this generation passed down most of it from my parents and my grandparents, who kept some of them. But sadly, of course, those days they were much more poorer people. I don't blame them. It's the way of life. They survive, they make happiness. That's the most important to me. So if I'm a starter collector, I wish they had $10, 10 ringgit. Maybe they kept 1,000 ringgit, that will worth a lot of money in my collection. Even the worst condition is already at 10,000 ringgit, today's market value. If they have kept one of those 1,000 ringgit banknotes, they're big. It's like almost the size of this. It's almost the size like this. It's very big banknote and very colorful. Behind is the parliament. Malaysia's parliament is the architecture they put the building behind on the banknote. So yeah. So from this evolution, then we come to this. This is the time in 1980s, I would say. So 1980. This is the money that I actually started using myself. Most of my friends are same age as me. This is the money that I've used to go buy food, canteen, and going to the candy shops and so forth. This is the most recognized money that I've used in my lifetime. So the evolution that is going through now. All of this is actually printed by the British. Yeah, it's all very printed by British. And those days, the banknote before 1999 in Malaysia's banknote, all banknotes has a printer's mark. So for example, the early days there we have this one. Let me read it. Is Burnaby Wilkinson print. Yeah, correct. Correct me if I'm not correct. So small. Burberry and Wilkinson print. I know this one. There are a few. This one is printed by Thomas de la Rouche. This by Wilkinson. So again, they're all the same. 1 ringgit. Thomas de la Rouche, Thomas de la Rouche, Thomas de la Rouche. Now, here's an interesting one. You see the difference with these two 1 ringgit. This is much more older. Older. This is the more younger ones. Okay, this is much more older. Before this was issued. Now the difference is because the corner side you have 1 dot here. Now this dot is actually for the blind man. Previous to this issue of this series, the notes, as you can see, the older ones like this one, if you are a visually impaired person, there is no way of telling that note's value. Of course, the other way knowing the value of the note is the size of the note. But if you are visually impaired, it's very difficult to indicate and confirm that note size, because feeling it is very, very difficult when you want to indicate which is big and small. Especially when you are trying to figure out the banknote. Most of it, they are very, very close, the size. Slightly different. If you use your eye, you can see it. But if you're visually impaired, it's very difficult. So they come up with this system. We call it the Blind Man series. The Blind Man series in Malaysia this is the first Blind Man series note. They experiment using the blind man. So $1 is just 1 dot, 1 ringgit is such a 1 dot, 5 ringgit is 2 dots, 10 ringgit is 3 dots, 20 ringgit is 4 dots, 50 ringgit is 5 dots, and 100 ringgit is 6 dots. And previously to that time, there is 500 ringgit and 1,000. They just add 1 more dot. So each time they have dots, they just indicate it right here at this corner. So of course, this series is very limited time they issued because it was experimental series before they actually upgrade the note further on to eliminate that. They actually find it not so useful. So after this, they reissued this series without the blind man. It was a dramatically different approach at that time. So yeah, they indicated right here the blind man. So each dot will be more, the higher the value of the denomination of the note. So then we have the 5 ringgit. We have the 5 ringgit. All this, actually, I kept it myself. Most of the 5 ringgit is from my parents, and most of it is that I didn't spend the money. I decided to keep it. And you can see the plastic paper is very yellowish because I bought it is this is a Vario brand, the German brand Vario, and I bought it in the 2002 2003 for keeping all those notes, and after 20 over years it turns yellowish. But the good thing is, as it promised, these plastics, there's no oil. Like most of the common plastics, they will actually become yellowish and then they ooze out liquid. The plastic melts itself and it will damage the note. So for me, this plastic has still maintained its usage as its purpose, I would say. There's no leaking or oozing out oil or stickiness inside. It just turned yellowish, but I kept it under in a safe or somewhere dark and secluded, so there's no UV impact on this note and the plastic, so probably it didn't degrade it much quicker, so it lasted more than 20 years, I would say, or at least 15 years, I would say. So yeah, so here are the 5 ringgits. I would say proudly kept nicely. Now there are two type of variations. One is this, the back is quite controversial, I would say, for 5 ringgit in this series. Is that our so-called His Majesty's Palace, the King's Palace, there is a flagpole right in the middle in between here. Now you can't see it from this distance, but I'll just explain. There are flagpoles here. Now, in the earlier days, I think I have one here. Not too sure where it is. I believe is, I do have it, but I didn't keep it right in this album, in another album, because there is another one very controversial and very rare type of notes. They're all the same. Is that the back of it, there is another flagpole in between the vertical one, the horizontal. So it looks like a cross. The controversial of that note, it looks like a cross. And of course, the controversial part is cross means Christians. Christians means Jesus. So, being a Muslim majority country and under the constitution of the country, Islam is the official religion. Having a flagpole looks like a cross in the King's Palace is a major problem. And of course, they rectified the issue very quickly on the banknotes era, and they fixed that. I had notes on that. It was a huge quantity issue, kind of mistake. It's an official mistake. It's not an error mistake mistaken by the manufacturer. It was the approved by the government and so forth. But at the end, the people pick it up and it's the same as we're talking about the Canadians' 1954 notes for the Queen's hair that has a picture of a devil's face. It wasn't supposed to be meant translated that way, but the people has translated into that way. The same thing goes to this one. They translate into a cross, but intentionally it wasn't supposed to be. In design to manufacturing, nobody realized it. It's not supposed to be a cross. It's just a flagpole. Flagpole that look like a cross is actually similar to a Navy's flagpole. So it was supposed to be a Navy's flagpole style, but eventually it just became, when the people started to see it and use the note, they started to say it's controversial that the country's becoming Christian and so forth. So it was a very huge issue at that time, so they have to rectify the issue to calm the citizens. So that is one of the controversial ones for the 5 ringgit in Malaysia's banknotes for this type of series. Then we have the 10 ringgit, poor condition, exactly, tape. But can't stop it. If I get what it is, I got what it is. I actually can buy a newer one, brighter color one, but I tend to not to buy, because I've already have it, so I just keep it. So we have now the 10 ringgit is much more obviously have more printer. This is Thomas de la Rouge. There is a BA banknote printing. This is Thomas de la Rouge. Then we have another one is Quebec from Germany's printing. Also, I think I have one. This is Francis Charles Oberter Then we have Quebec printing. So there are German, there are British printing for Malaysia banknotes. So there are quite a number of varieties of this. There are at least 4 varieties, I would say. BA banknote, and so forth. Now for this type of series, there are 50 ringgit, and there is the 100 ringgit, and the 500 ringgit, and the 1,000 ringgit. Most of those are printed by the Canadian banknote, BA banknote, Thomas de la Rouge, but the German one, I think there is one Quebec printing for 100 ringgit. But the 500 and the 1000, not so many is being printed. So there are only one printer variation for that note. Can't recall which one at the moment, but it's in my collection. So I actually have one piece of the 500 and the 1000, which is the 500 one is the one I bought myself. The 1000 one is sentimental to me because it's my grandmother's last heirloom given to me before she passed away. So it's the last family possessions that she let go. She kept that 1000. Actually, she could change that 1000 to a newer banknote, but being that kind of hassle she has to do that, eventually she just gave that 1000 note, asked me to do whatever you want. And she forgot that I collect banknotes. Actually, she forgotten at that time when she passed the 1000 ringgit to me, and eventually I decided to keep. Now she actually had 2 pieces of it, one for me and one for my cousin. Now my cousin actually don't collect banknotes, so they don't know the value of it, of that 1000 ringgit, which is no longer used in Malaysia, because the denomination is too big, and it is how do I say, money embezzlement, and a lot of the mafias or the gangsters used to transport money much more easy, for especially embezzlement and so forth. So the government decided to decommission the 1000 and the 500 ringgit as of since 1999. So at that time I got the note, one for me, one for my cousin. My cousin didn't know how to value it, and eventually, if you want even till today, in any country, if you have old banknotes that is no longer be commercially viable or commercially used, you can go to the national bank, okay, which is my cousin did, to exchange for a newer notes, which is like this, for 1000 face value. So he changed 1000, I got and get back 1000 in value in the new money. That's it. And what happens they do with the old money? Technically, on the books, they have to destroy it. They burn it, incinerate it. For me, the current note itself, I've kept myself, the value is now 3,000 ringgit, I would say. Roughly in a condition that people willing to buy, you could go up to 3,000 ringgit. So it's more than its face value already. So I wanted to tell, at that time I actually wanted to tell my parents that, you know what, maybe you should get that note and then you change 1000 ringgit to him. Well, my mom said you shouldn't because grandmother gave it to him, so he has the right to do whatever he wants with that note. Sadly, I oblige. It's a loss. If not, I could have had 2 of the 1000 ringgit, and I could have possession in my asset today, 6,000 ringgit at least. Of course, I took between the 2 notes, I recall that I've got the best condition note among the 2. So at least I got a better condition that. So yeah. So that's another part of the story about that 1000. So let's move on. There's a lot more to go through. This is the modern 1 ringgit at that time, paper. This is paper currency. It's my serial number. I got this during Chinese New Year. And of course, still legal tender, but elusively no longer print for a very long time. It's still legal tender. It's the 2 ringgit. Now, there's a story. There's one time that I saw one of the supermarket at the cashier. One of the customer was actually giving a transaction using the 2 ringgit to the cashier. Now the cashier never seen the 2 ringgit before, Now this is a period, it's not that the note just recently issued. It was long period of time no longer issued. So people started to forgot about the 2 ringgit. They never think about it, they never use it, especially many younger generation, they've never seen the 2 ringgit before. Today, this technically is still considered 2 ringgit legal tender. It's still legal tender in 2 ringgit. It was not decommissioned. It still has 2 ringgit value and still legally able to use for exchange for goods and services. It's just that people don't see this very very often, and today is virtually very rare. You ever see this in a circulation position. The last time I see this was like more than 10 years ago, before I was a university student, before I went overseas. They try attempt to change. The cashier try not to accept it, but I did tell them that money is legal tender. It's still legal tender by Bank Negara, and it's still worth 2 ringgit. And eventually they actually accept the 2 ringgit, which is very awkward for them to collect 2 ringgit looking at their faces. But yeah, notes like this are very rare. They are still legal tender, but very very rare. But of course, in today's world, today's generation, this note is no longer being used in commercial. Most of it, like me, they keep it for sentimental value. And of course, the government actually stopped printing this 2 ringgit because it's cheaper to print 2 of this 1 ringgit note rather than having to print a banknote that is 2 ringgit denomination. So that was the reason they actually stopped printing this, but it's still considered a value. They still consider 2 ringgit legal tender. Now this one I'm just going to show you that in 1999 they started to design this series as the Vision 2020 series. A bit more modern, more flares, and most of the notes today in Malaysia still uses this as a principal design of the note till today. Anyway, so this is the note that we are very commonly see the design compared to the older ones that, like this one, most of the younger generation don't know about this note, especially my nephew, my niece, I mess up my word, my niece never seen these notes before, and probably she thinks this is just a fake money because this is the money she recognizes. Just like me, when I was young, all this money, this generation are fake to me. But to my parents, this is money at that time. My money started in this generation, and I use this money in my generation. Then this to me is probably fake money, not real money. I never see money like this before. This is my first time when I was in elementary school. This is the money that I use. This is my generation. Now my cousin's generation, they don't have seen paper money of a 1 ringgit. They use plastic, the polymer one. That is her generation, I would say. My niece's generation. All this is 1999, year 2000 prints. It was 20 years ago. This note was 20 years ago, including this one. It was printed in 1996. 1995 was the early series. 1996 started to mobilize. 1997 started to roll out across the whole country, and eventually by 1999 they halt this printing of a 2 ringgit. I used this ringgit when I was in elementary school in the canteen to buy food. Most of the time my parents always give me 2 ringgit per day to buy food. So yeah, talking about part of my life, banknotes do run through your life in that series. And you look at this 2 ringgit series, they are different. The governor's signatures on the side is different than this one. And then these are the earlier series. The side printing was the earlier design. Eventually they actually flip it to the center. This is the latest series which dominated across all the banknote after year 2000 and 2001. They started to use the signature at the center. So if you see any banknote in Malaysia that is a side signature, it's rare. They are valuable. You can keep it for collection, no matter what condition it is. Just keep it because the number of print is much more rarer. And subsequently, 5 ringgit in paper. These are the older generation without a silver strip. Before they changed to polymer, I would say. And then we have the 10 ringgit side print. Now actually I had 2 more of the notes here, but those are the replacement notes, ZA print. Those 2 with a side print like this and the Ali signature, which is this signature on the side here, like this. They are currently, I bought those at like around 120 ringgit when I was still in the highs in year 2002, 2003. Now it's worth 1,500, 1,800 ringgit each. So I actually removed it because it became high value. I put it in another catalog book rather than put it in here. Most of these notes, their value is still reasonably cheap, I would say. Face value, of course, is 5 ringgit. It's still valid legal tender. Probably they're worth about 10 ringgit each. Just double it. They are not really high value point, but it is a good point to collect them. And at that period of time, all of this I got this. I put it in. They're all in face value. I never bought it in extra charge or extra payment other than its replacement notes. All of this are considered, well, to me is considered 10 ringgit. I got it from banks, I got it from ATM machines, I got it from the Chinese New Year red packet from my relatives. If they're always brand new, uncirculated condition, keep it and prop it in here. Now, so yeah, this one is the first series of the Vision 2020. They have no silver strips here. Then they issue the ones with the silver strips here. So that is the generation that passed down the next. As you can see, and then we have 50, and a lot of the 50 ringgit, this type of 50 ringgit is getting rarer. The last time I saw this 50 ringgit appear was just last year, December, just before Christmas. One ATM machine spit out this banknote, this type of series, which is very old. Today is 2025. This note was issued in the 2000, 2001, 2002 banknote. Especially it's a side signature like this one. It's really at the ballpark of the year 2000 was printed out. So you can see it's already more than 25 years old. 25 years old, this banknote. And it's getting more rarer and difficult to find this note on daily transaction scenario. Most of it are all newer ones. The older ones like this, people still treat it as like normal daily banknote. Nothing like wow factor compared to 2 ringgit one. That was very wow. If I started using 2 ringgit today, right now, people will get shocked. This one, people still not getting a shock. This because it was the bread and butter of money for this series, for people doing transactions. So people don't think it as it's rare. Wow, never seen this note very long time. They don't think about it. They just think it's 50 ringgit. But when you see the 2 ringgit, they say, wow, I haven't seen that one for a long time. The reaction will be different because of the society treated it differently. So that's all I have for the Malaysia one. The Singapore one, now again, most of these notes were given to me by my parents a lot across the whole lot. I didn't buy them. There are a few that I bought, but I think it's in Cambodia notes. So yeah, let's go through this very quickly because I got nothing much to talk other than this one is that it's given by my parents, my father especially, who went there to do business in Singapore when his the early years. This is the bird series. So if you are Singaporean, you know this banknote when it was issued more than I do than in Malaysia one. I like Malaysia. This is a series where my father went there to do business. Now I don't have the one that's the orchid series, which is much more earlier than the Bird series. So yeah, kept it for sentimental. All this I got it. I didn't buy it. I didn't purchase it. It was given to my parents, to me. So these are some of them worth just exactly $1 Singapore dollar. So really, really just face value, most of it. And then the $2 Singapore dollars, the boat series, which is much more after the series, I would believe so, because my parents have this one more a lot, and they have a lot of this one, and a lot of it. The 50 one, I took it out. I just put it in another banknote series, and then the face of their first president of Singapore. If I'm not mistaken, is Yusof Ishak. Quite interesting though. I got this one my parents were lucky, got this one. The serial number is very nice, is 380001. It's a very nice number, I would say. ₱2. I believe that the smallest denomination right now in Singapore is actually in paper, or in currency like this, is $2. The $1 one, they eliminated. Probably that is the case right now. I don't recall that, but I think they removed the $1 because they use it in coins. So yeah, $2. Then we have the $5, which I think the color wise is very nice. Now if you notice the color in the Singapore one and the Malaysia, they are almost similar patterns, because again, what was the reason why there's the similarities? The reason is because the British, we were colonized by the British Empire, and they have judged what each denomination, what is the color should be. So Singapore and Malaysia, we are under the British yokes, British Empire, we follow the same thing. So you see the $5 in Singapore is green color, Malaysia's ringgit is in green color. The ringgit is a bit purplish, the $2 Singapore is purple. Now the only one they don't have is actually ringgit, so we don't want to talk about that. Now if you see the ones in the 50, and Singapore's 50 is blue. As you can see the difference right here. So ours is blue in 50 ringgit, Singapore is blue in 50 ringgit. Now where it divulged from after the 50 is the 100. The 100 one, they use orange, whereas Malaysia, they use purple. That's the only one that part of it is much more widely different, I would say. So yeah, a lot of the notes is Singapore was much more clean, much more simpler in design wise, nothing too flary like in Malaysia's. They are much more beautiful compared to Singapore, but Singapore, because the economy is very good, they hold much more better value than Malaysia. So this note I only got up to 50. I got nothing above 50, because 50 Singapore dollar at that time is already 150 ringgit, so if worth more, worth around 150 ringgit. The 100 one will become 300 ringgit. So at that time my father don't have that much money on him, so the 50 was the largest one that he has in his pocket and willing to provide me. And to be honest, given to me this note during the early 2000, I believe this note was around 2000. Having given it to me, and the condition is still very good. This is a bit wear and tear. The color is a bit deteriorated, but this is more uncirculated condition. There's a slight fold of the wallet right here, for wallet sense. Nothing a strong fold here, but it is very in good condition. Brunei is something that I don't have, but out of the blue I just bought something that I like to see, especially polymer. So I don't have Brunei. My parents didn't go to Brunei, so I didn't buy anything. I didn't get anything inheritance as Brunei ringgit. So I've got this one from the dealers, the 1 ringgit and the 10 ringgit. Again, similarities. Color, 1 ringgit, similar to Malaysia's 1 ringgit, which is blue. 10 ringgit Brunei is red, similar to Singapore's using $10 as their red, and in Malaysia is red. Former British colonies, which is already fixed on what color to use. The problem is, it's not a problem, it's a kind of solution to indicate the denomination. Sometimes it's not just people who are able to read. Sometimes they are illiterate. So color becomes a very big play role for the banknote. So people will recognize the banknote's color, which equals to the denomination. If it's red, 10 ringgit. If it's green, it's 5 ringgit. It's blue color. If it's 100 in Malaysia, it's purple. If it's 50, it's dark blue. So light blue with green. Something like that. So yeah, not much on Brunei, but yeah, that's what I have. And it's very expensive, of course. Brunei's ringgit and Singapore dollar, they peg together 1-to-1. So if Singapore goes up, Brunei goes up. Next one is Thai. Another one that my parents went for holiday. So during those days, younger days before I was born, and they went to Thailand. They have this banknote they've got, or when I was very young at the time. These are the notes that they given to me. Now there are other notes that I have for Thailand, but it's in the safe deposit. Especially I have a bunch of 1,000 baht, which is at that generally equivalent to Malaysia is 100 ringgit. I kept it in the safe. Those are very old ones, not old until this point, but they're old at the point around in the late 1990s to early 2000s kind of banknotes. These are the older version of the notes. I'm not fancy much of the Thai banknotes, but yeah, I didn't went to Thailand before, so I don't collect Thai banknotes. A lot of Southeast Asian banknotes I don't collect, but yeah, that's what I have at the moment. So this is a much more earlier series. 1 baht, 10 baht, 5 baht, 20 baht, and 100 baht. They are bigger denomination of 500 baht and 1000 baht, but I don't know whether they have that in this generation. I assume that 100 baht is the largest one. Then we go to the Indonesia, same thing. I got it from my parents. I didn't buy anything on this. There was an earlier one. Now Indonesia notes that to me they're kind of dull, if you ask me. But they have a lot of varieties of notes. But to me personally, they look very dull in their design. It looks very low class and very cheap. But understanding that if you have a banknote like this, it does translate to know and understand the situation of their country. During those days, they were much more economically disadvantaged. There were crises in their country, so the banknote do reflect their scenario, the situation on their country. So yeah, this series is actually they have until 1,000 if I'm not mistaken, but these are the earlier days they had. Now this series is one of my favorite ones. This one actually is one of my favorite Indonesian banknotes, 20,000 rupiah. Very beautiful if you ask me. Compared to this one, the color and the vibrance for the 20,000 is very good, and I love this one. Among all the Indonesian banknotes I have, this is one of my favorite ones. This bird has very striking color. The design and the motifs around it is much more sophisticated compared to the this one, which is much more early prints. They're much more dull and much more monotonous. This one, the 20,000, it looks very vibrant. The color matches the banknotes richness of the banknote. So this is supposed to be back, or this is supposed to be the front actually, and this is supposed to be the back. But for me and my collection, how I place my collection, I try to place the front most of the time, at the front, and normally the front is where you have a lot of the serial numbers on it. But sometimes the front doesn't have serial number, the serial number at the back. So I have to figure out which is the front and which is the back. But I find this one very beautiful. I love it. And they have indication of the country's map on their banknote. Very typical for countries that are very developing. Now most of the countries now I see they put a flag or the flag or their country's geography onto the banknote. Is mostly like in African countries, because it does provide a simpler way to tell people what is Indonesia is, how big is Indonesia, how Indonesia look like on a banknote, especially a country which is very far illiterate countries, where schools are much more difficult access to every kids in the country. Banknotes becomes a way to tell the story of their country. So yeah, now I don't deny that in Malaysia you don't use that. We do use that too, especially we're trying to translate our Malaysia. We're trying to translate the Vision 2020 policy, making us more from a transition from a developing country to a developed country scenario. We create a banknote that tells that story, the achievement, the modernization of our country from a agrarian society of agricultural structure to a manufacturing society or manufacturing economy. That is the translation of the banknotes. You know, if what meant is something like this Vision 2020 series is something like this. We achieve petrochemical, we are drilling oil as our progress. We've built modern public transportation systems, aeroplanes, shipyards. We're moving towards the future. We have built infrastructure of a twin tower, the tallest twin tower in the world. We've developed airports, building our very big airports, modern airports. What more can we tell the story? We built telecommunication. We sent our very first satellite called the Miasat to space, our very own space satellite. Miasat. And then we built our first telecommunication tower. The tallest one is the Kuala Lumpur Tower. So those are the modern days of the Vision 2020. We're trying to translate the image, the message to the masses. Through banknotes, we tell the story to the people. So sometimes banknotes has objectives, it's not just only a monetary transaction. Sometimes the design of it has a meaning, including like Indonesia. Look, this was trying to tell the series of the progress of development, modernization of the country. This was to describe the bountiful flora and fauna of the country, which is why it attracted me. This note really attracts me. Really beautiful. If you ask me, this 20,000 rupiah is one of my favorite Indonesia banknote I would have liked to have. Although it's very cheap to get, to be honest. Anyone can buy this one. It's very cheap. It's not much. I think it's still face value, to be honest. But anyway, this is the note that I actually got it from my father, and I kept it, and it's very good condition. It's almost, I would say, uncirculated condition. So, excuse me, uncirculated condition for this note. Really happy to have this note. Then this was, I got it from my sister who traveled there for a holiday. This is the 1,000 rupiah, 5,000 rupiah. Now, to give a sense of the value of it, 1,000 rupiah is almost like one, if I'm not mistaken, like 10 cent ringgit or 1 cent ringgit. Really, very, very small. 1 million is about 300 to 350. I believe it's 300 ringgit. 1 million. 100,000 is 30. 10,000 is like 3. Yeah, 1,000 is about 30 cents. 1,000 is about 30 cents. So it's almost a similar image that 1,000 is actually 10 cents. You know, the feeling of the money you're paying is this is like 10 cents. Really, does it worth anything? Because of the inflation they had on their country, the inflation keeps on going up. They created banknotes with more zeros. There is one time or period Indonesia wants to eliminate 3 zeros on their bank note as a reform, revalue their currency. So they want to change from 5,000 rupiahs to 5 rupiahs, 1,000 to 1 rupiahs on their banknote. Subsequently, they will change. But one thing I'm really surprised with Indonesia's banknotes, they change their design very frequently. Not only the banknote serial number ended, but they also change the design of the banknotes very, very frequently. So, if you wish to collect in one country with lots of modern variety, Indonesia is one of the best pick of it. So yeah, we have the 10,000, we got a 1,000. Now actually I have a 20,000, it's not here, and 50,000 it's not here. I think I kept it in the safe or somewhere else, which is a much more, reading this series, I believe the one with the big bluish one color. That one is more patriotic, I would say, that series. Yeah, but it's in a very good condition. That's why I think it's not here. Then I have the very first polymer. This is the Indonesia's very first polymer banknote they had made. Of course, they were not able to make their own polymer banknote. So guess where they manufacture this note? If you guess it right, it should be is Australia. Australia is their being contract to manufacture and print 100,000 rupiahs. This is the very first and probably the very last banknote in polymer. Now, it is a very good collection, I would say, for 100,000 polymer banknotes for the daily usage. I was thinking they were much more in the right path to convert them to use polymer banknotes. Probably in the future they will revisit back to use polymer, but at the moment most of the Indonesian banknotes is printed by Indonesia itself. They don't contract much to overseas to print at the moment, but yeah, I hope one day they will actually reprint again in polymer. That time they were trying to push for it, but eventually they stopped, probably because of the cost wise and so forth. So 1,000. This is one of my second favorite banknote in Indonesia, actually. Then you go to 5,000, 50,000. This is much more commemorative. There are two types of commemorative: the polymer type and the normal usage of the cotton type. So yeah, this is a celebration of the 25 years of development. So kind of I would say a commemorative banknotes. This is quite worn off. The plastic one also quite worn off because, again, the silver inside the paper, like there's the window there, the hologram is started to deteriorate. Start to crystallize and then breaking down. This is one of the early days technologies, a very big blunder in technology for plastics. Yeah. So if you grade it, it's going to be very difficult to get a uncirculated. But yeah, it's one of my collection that I keep for myself. 2,000 rupiahs. This is a bit more modern series. 5000. I have the modern type one that today they use this. Now this became the principle of the so-called the foundation of their banknote design. So no matter what series they change, they will have the same principle. The words here, the center will be a dance, local dance, varieties of local dance across the countries, and the portrait of their leaders of the country, and then the map of Indonesia is there. So the principles are still the same, like this kind of notes, but they just change a little bit, tweak here, variety. Even this note, they start using the security feature for European, the European star, European star security features here. So when you scan this note, it will become invalid for printout. This is a Vietnam, earlier days of Vietnam banknote. Again, I didn't buy this. I got it from my parents, so I just kept it here. And surprisingly, when they passed it to me, the notes condition was very good. Bright colors, of course. Today, these notes are all worth nothing. You can't buy anything for 200 dong, to be honest, let alone 1,000 dong. And of course, in Vietnam, they have all these notes. I don't know whether they're still valid today as a face value. I'm not too sure, because most of the notes that the last time I went to Vietnam, in Ho Chi Minh or Saigon, all the notes are modern types, so they don't use these types. I don't see they use this type anymore. So yeah, they use this one, polymer. Most of the notes, the higher denomination they use it. So this is 10,000 dong. This is the note that are commonly used today. 20,000 dong, 50,000 dong, 100,000 dong. If I'm not mistaken, the highest value one is 200,000 dong. This is the highest denomination. Or is it 500,000 dong? I'm not too sure. I've forgotten about it. But yeah, I got this one when I was traveling in Vietnam, and I tried to attempt to get a very best condition and keep it. I have another one, is actually blue color one, which is the highest denomination. Right? I think I kept it somewhere else. Lastly is Cambodia. Again, I didn't buy any of it other than the auction one. You see, it's the commemorative one. So I've got all this one, and I don't think this is reusable one. This one is, I believe, is still usable. It's still legal tender. You can see that as 50 rial, Cambodian rial, 100 rial, to 500 rial. Yeah, it's still valid because they're printed in 2001, 2002, 2004. Of course, they actually redesign similar concept like this note, but they redesign it. Then we have one series is their king, the late king of Cambodia. 10,000, 5,000, 1,000 rial. It's all printed in the early 2005 when I was in my high school. This is the current note they're using today. This is the note that they use today. Inside here, I bought this actually because the newest series one like this, nobody went to Cambodia in my family, so I didn't get this. I bought it on this one. This is all I given me. This is the one I bought, and I find it, and they are, of course, they are relatively cheap. Based on the Cambodian rial, is very cheap. So yeah, but I actually like the 100 rial. The concept is Buddhism. It's very, very nice. The color is suitable. The orange yellowish color tone is very beautiful, and I like this color. And representing Buddhism, a monk, is really, really touched me. It's really beautiful note. Yeah, 200. As the denomination goes up, there's a variety of designs. Again, size different, color is different, and it looks very cheap actually, but the UV is actually very very superb. All these are UV, under UV light it will glow really really nice. Here it will glow really really nice. The notes, I mean, the design of the note, I really like it. They're very beautiful. They're ample. You use the space of the note. I would say Cambodia's new notes are very nice. Although their value not so great, I would say, not too great, but they do have a beautiful notes itself. Then we have this one. I bought it for 8 ringgit for both these. 1,000, 2,000, and then this is a commemorative banknote. This one's a commemorative. Actually, these are commemorative banknote actually, but anyway, it's commemorative banknote is very very nice. This is 15,000. This is also, how much? This is 100,000. Yep, this is the 100,000 banknote. Late king and the mother. Late king and and a current queen. The queen is still alive, but the king passed away. So in the year 2004, if I'm not mistaken, the father abdicated this throne and the son took over. Yeah, the son took over to become the king, which is currently the king of Cambodia. And recently I bought the note which is issued last year in Cambodia, was this one. I already talked about it. It's the 200,000 rial. This is to commemorate him the 20th anniversary of his coronation, which his father actually abdicated in the year 2003 or 2004, and he proclaimed to be the next king because being the heir to the throne, so he became the king. So even this note in 2004, this was printed in 2004, his portrait is in the front like his father did, and the mother on the back. Now if you ask me, it tells me the story. I'm not very clear, I'm not going to be ignorant to it. Probably the king's mother is still alive. That is why she's significant here. If you ask me, it should be the queen together with the king, just like this. Is more suitable of the commemorative banknote. But I think he plays a very significant role with his Majesty's mother together. So probably that is why they decided to have the queen mother on the back rather than the queen, the current queen. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know so much about Cambodian banknotes. I didn't do a lot of study about it, but I really do love their design of the banknote. It looks very photogenic. If you notice, it looks very photogenic, rather than very intaglio print design, because they do have stories. Again, why do Cambodians have such a banknote like this? It still uses a concept like that because of the French influence of printing their banknotes. The French printing of their banknotes is far different from the others. They are very more realistically picture type of banknotes. So they don't use a lot of intaglio prints like that we normally see majority of the banknotes across the world would use. So compared with the French one, they will use very realistic photos onto the banknote. It's one of their specialty of their printing, and it affects most of their colonial states and former colonial states that are currently in today. If you see some of the African countries like Comoros and so forth, those who are governed formerly by the French, Algeria and so forth. Most of the banknote you'll see something like this, very realistic photos onto banknote. Cambodia is one. Vietnam was colonized. I think Vietnam, they have already moved on because they became much more socialist country, so they have actually transformed themselves very much. But yeah, Cambodia still uphold the traditional design of banknotes that use less intaglio, more realistic printouts. So yeah, and I bought this note from the auction house, and again I would like to say Cat's auction. It's one of the auction number 99, lot number 2633. You can see how much I bought for it. Maybe it's over, maybe it's less, but I think I got this one really good because I can't find this anywhere for this commemorative banknote. So gotta get them. Then we have the other ones. I believe this is the older one. Cambodian notes. Yep. Filipino notes. Again, I don't collect much of Filipino notes, but yeah. Got a 1 and 2 pesos, the earlier one, and then the other one. This one was given to me. I bought this one, but this was given to me. That's why you see tapes. I don't buy banknotes with tape unless they're extremely rare. That's one thing. Unless they're extremely rare, fine, I'll get it. But if not, I don't. This is given to me by my mother. My parents gave it to me, so I know this note has no value in such a condition. You can get this note better condition, uncirculated condition, for a mere 10 ringgit, probably 10 ringgit or less. But anyway, sentimental value because it's given to my parents, so I'm keeping it. Well, that's all I have for the banknotes series. If you are not interested in Pokemon cards, you can leave now. So I say thank you and good night. But those of you who are interested, these are some of the oldies collection when I was a kid. Before I start collecting banknotes, I play. I don't collect. I play Pokemon cards, and of course, I was very lucky. I got this card when I was a kid. Today we're all rambling. We're talking about this card, Charizard. Yeah. This is a normal one, which is everybody has it. For Charizard cards, not edition 1, not first edition. It's the limited one, so it's not worth a lot of money. I would say it's not worth a lot of money, but I'm planning to grade this cards. To be honest, I'm planning to grade it. Many of it I got it Fossil, Mewtwo. Most of my cards are not many. This one, Dark Slowbro. This is the only one I had first edition. Now the only first edition cards that I've bought in Pokemon that are first edition actually is Team Rocket, and it's one of my favorite boost expansion sets is Team Rocket. It's one of my favorite ones. Then my very base set is my favorite ones to play as a base set. The normal expansion set, my favorite one is Team Rocket. My collection is not much, I would say, but yeah, it rolls on to me. Some of them I like it, like Dark Magneton, Pichu. I tried to sell this for 40 bucks, but nobody is buying it, no one's catching it. At that time it's 40 ringgit. Today probably it's still 40 ringgit, who knows. I didn't catch on the price on the bank on cards, yeah. I got the Slowbro, Wigglypuff, Pigleys, Clefairies, trainer cards, Giovanni's, Persian, Togetic, and non-hollow cards right here. Some of them are first edition, but not hollow, probably because not much, I would say. Probably about 50 ringgit or so, or 40 ringgit. So yeah, my Pokemon cards were not so great collection. They're quite small because I stopped playing Pokemon cards really early based on my parents' argument. So yeah, I then eventually stopped playing Pokemon cards. Yeah. Gym series, Duck, Golduck, Erica's Oddish, and Unknown. There was a time that I wanted to collect all the unknowns from A to Z, and yeah, didn't make it in the time to collect them all, but you know, So yeah, that's all for my archive collection. This is my last book of my collection of it, and I'm probably just going to see what I can do with my collection to re-archive everything, to restructure everything. So yeah, of course that. So thank you very much for your time. And again, I wish every Muslims across the world a very happy Eid Mubarak, and also Selamat Hari Raya Adi Fitri. Hope you can enjoy the long holidays. So again, if you like this video, do give me a like. If you have any questions or any comments, I believe we solved, since I just showed my Indonesia collection. That should be one of my so-called fans or uh, so YouTubers would comment something there. I pretty wait for it. And yeah, if you have anything to say, comments, or criticism, do give right in. I'm more than welcome to hear about it. And if you like to see future videos of mine, do subscribe and get a notification from me. Again, my disclaimer: I do this for fun, not for money. Just to present my collection as like my diary of my collection that I have at that time, and hopefully it will remind me on the future what my future self, what I have and how much I bought and so forth. And in the meantime, since I store it in YouTube, I prefer to share my collection to the world as a way to inspire people to collect banknotes, coins, stamps, or even trading cards, as a way of achieving goals, whether it's a collection or in hobby. Right. So again, thank you very much for your time, and I hope to see you soon, real soon.